The slave markets of Zerion Prime stunk of fear and desperation. Rows upon rows of cages lined the massive warehouse, each containing beings from across the galaxy. The air buzzed with alien languages, crying, and the occasional crack of an energy whip. Maya Chen pressed herself against the cold metal bars of her cage, watching the daily auction from her corner spot. At 17, she had been here for 3 months now, watching younger humans get sold while she remained. The Kalreth slavers called her too old for proper training and damaged goods because of the scar running down her left cheek from her capture. 2 cages over sat the reason. She hadn't completely lost hope yet. The creature the other slaves whispered about in hushed tones. They called him Corvash, though Maya doubted that was his real name. He looked like what humans might imagine a werewolf to be, but larger and more intelligent. Standing nearly 8 feet tall even when hunched in his cage, his dark gray fur was streaked with silver, and his golden eyes held a wisdom that spoke of many years. The Kalreth had marked his cage with a red symbol that meant, "Dangerous. Do not approach." But Maya had noticed something else about him. While other slaves begged or raged or wept, Corvash simply observed. His eyes tracked every guard, every routine, every weakness in their captors' patterns. Another day in paradise, Maya whispered to herself, a bitter habit she'd developed to keep her sanity. To her surprise, the wolf-like alien's ears twitched toward her. His golden eyes met hers for a moment before he looked away. It was the first time she'd seen him react to anything in weeks. The morning auction began with the usual fanfare. Selnari traders in their flowing robes examined the merchandise while Kalreth auctioneers shouted prices in their harsh language. Maya watched a family of blue-skinned Altarians get separated. Parents and children sold to different buyers. The sight made her stomach turn. Lot 47, the auctioneer called out in broken galactic standard. Young Terran female. Ideal for domestic service or entertainment. Maya's heart sank as the guards approached a cage 3 rows ahead of her. A girl who couldn't be older than 14 was dragged out, tears streaming down her face. The bidding was fierce, and Maya had to look away when the final gavel fell. When she looked back up, she found Corvash staring directly at her. This time he didn't look away. There was something in his expression she couldn't quite read, but it wasn't pity. It was more like recognition. That evening, when the guards distributed their meager rations of gray protein paste, Maya noticed something different. Usually, the guards avoided Corvash's cage entirely, sliding his food through a slot without getting close. Tonight, though, one of the newer guards got careless. The young Kalreth, probably trying to impress his colleagues, decided to taunt the old wolf. "What's wrong, beast? Too old and slow to be dangerous anymore?" Corvash remained perfectly still, but Maya saw his muscles tense slightly. The guard, emboldened by the lack of reaction, actually opened the cage door and stepped inside. "Maybe we should put you in the arena fights. Let the crowd see how pathetic the mighty Fenrir have become." At the word Fenrir, Corvash's ears flattened against his head. Maya had heard that word before, whispered in the same terrified tones as legendary stories. The Fenrir were supposed to be extinct, wiped out in some great war decades ago. The guard raised his shock prod, clearly intending to make Corvash perform some trick for the amusement of the others. What happened next was almost too fast for Maya to follow. In one fluid motion, Corvash sprang forward, his massive hand closing around the guard's throat. He lifted the Kalreth off his feet with ease, but instead of crushing his windpipe, he simply held him there for a few seconds. When he set the guard down, his voice was a low growl that carried perfectly in the sudden silence of the warehouse. "Touch me again, and I will show you exactly why my people were called the Iron Wolves of the Outer Rim." The guard stumbled backward, his colleagues pointing their weapons at the cage. But Corvash simply walked back to his corner and sat down as if nothing had happened. The message was clear, though. He was choosing to be here, not forced to be here. Later that night, when the lights dimmed to their nighttime setting, Maya heard a soft sound from Corvash's cage. At first, she thought he might be sick or injured, but as she listened closer, she realized he was humming. It was a haunting melody, unlike anything she'd heard before. "That's beautiful," she whispered, not even sure if he could hear her. The humming stopped. After a long moment, his voice came through the darkness, speaking in heavily accented but perfect English. "It is a song my people sang for cubs who could not sleep. A song of home and starlight." Maya's breath caught. You speak English. I speak many languages. It passes the time. There was dry humor in his voice. And you, young human, have been watching me for weeks. Why? Maya struggled for words. You're different from the others. You don't seem broken. Broken? Corvash seemed to consider this. No, waiting perhaps, but not broken. Waiting for what? For the right moment. Or perhaps for the right reason. His golden eyes gleamed in the dim light. What is your name, little star? Maya Chen. Maya, he repeated as if testing the sound. I am Corvash Anthek of the Iron Moon Pack, though I suppose that means little now. It means something to me, Maya said softly. It means you remember who you are. For the first time since she'd been watching him, Corvash smiled. It was a fearsome sight with his fangs, but there was genuine warmth in it. Yes, he said, and so do you, Maya Chen. That is why you will survive this place when others do not. As she drifted off to sleep that night, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Not the desperate, clawing hope of escape, but something steadier. The hope that came from no longer being alone. She didn't know that Corvash lay awake long into the night, his keen ears listening to her breathing, his warrior's instincts already beginning to shift from personal survival to protection of another. The old wolf had found something worth fighting for again. The friendship between Maya and Corvash grew quietly over the following weeks. Their conversations happened in whispers during the darkest hours, when the guards were few and the other slaves slept fitfully. Maya learned that Corvash was indeed one of the last Fenrir, a species that had once been the galaxy's most feared warriors, before they were systematically hunted to near extinction. We were too proud, Corvash explained one night, his voice barely audible. When the hegemony came with their offers of peace, we saw only weakness. We chose to fight when we should have adapted. Maya shifted closer to the bars separating their cages. How did you end up here? I was a ship captain. Smuggler, if I'm being honest. The Calrith caught me 3 years ago. They kept hoping someone would pay my ransom, but... He shrugged, a gesture that seemed almost human. There is no one left to pay for an old wolf. 3 years? Maya couldn't hide her shock. Why haven't you tried to escape? Corvash's laugh was bitter. Where would I go? My ship is scrapped, my crew scattered or dead, and even if I escaped, there are no other Fenrir to find. I am the end of a line that stretches back 10,000 years. The weight of his loneliness hit Maya like a physical blow. She had lost her family when Earth's colony ship had been attacked, but at least she knew other humans were out there among the stars. Corvash truly was alone in the universe. You're not alone anymore, she said quietly. His golden eyes found hers in the dim light. No, little star. I suppose I am not. Their bond deepened when Maya fell ill with Azarian fever, a nasty virus that swept through the slave quarters every few months. The Calreth's attitude was simple. If the slaves were too sick to sell, they weren't worth the cost of medicine. Maya burned with fever for 3 days, barely conscious and shaking with chills. Through her delirium, she heard Corvash's voice. He had somehow managed to reach through the bars between their cages, far enough to touch her forehead with his massive hand. His touch was surprisingly gentle, and his voice was steady as he told her stories of his homeworld. On Fenris Prime, we had auroras that danced green and gold across 3 moons, he murmured. The Aurora Wolves, we called them. Legend said they were the spirits of warriors who died with honor, running free among the stars forever. When Maya's fever finally broke on the 4th day, the first thing she saw was Corvash's concerned face pressed against the bars. He had somehow procured a container of clean water and a piece of relatively fresh bread. How did you get this? She asked weakly. The young guard who tried to intimidate me last week. It seems he is more reasonable when approached properly. Maya didn't ask what approached properly meant, but she noticed the guard in question had taken to giving Corvash's cage a very wide berth. Their conversations became more frequent after that. Maya told him about Earth, about the dreams she'd had of becoming a xenobiologist and studying alien life forms. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Here I am studying alien life up close, she said one night, managing a weak joke. And what have you learned about this particular specimen? Corvash asked with amusement. That Fenrir are terrible at hiding their feelings. You've been planning something for weeks now. I can see it in the way you watch the guards. Corvash was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was serious. The arena fights are starting again next week. The Calreth always need fresh blood for the entertainment. They will come for some of us. Maya's blood ran cold. She'd heard whispers about the arena from other slaves. It was where they sent the ones who were too old, too difficult, or too damaged to sell. If you ever return, do you think they'll take you? I know they will. An old Fenrir warrior. The crowds will love it. Watch the last of the Iron Wolves die for your amusement. His voice carried no fear, only grim acceptance. Then we need to get you out of here before then. We? Corvash raised an eyebrow. You don't think I'm letting my only friend in this hellhole go die in some arena, do you? Something shifted in Corvash's expression. In all his years of captivity, no one had called him friend. No one had cared whether he lived or died. This slip of a human girl was willing to risk everything for someone she'd known for only a few weeks. Maya, listen to me carefully. Even if we could escape this facility, where would we go? I have no ship, no credits, no contacts who aren't dead or scattered. And you're human. Your people have colonies, embassies, a future. Don't throw your life away on a lost cause. Maya's eyes flashed with anger. You're not a lost cause. And I'm not leaving without you. The arena might not be a death sentence, Corvash said quietly, though they both knew he was lying. If I perform well, if the crowd enjoys the show, they might keep me alive for future fights. Or you could die on the first day, and I could spend the rest of my life wondering if I could have saved my friend. The word friend hung in the air between them. It meant something different to a Fenrir than to a human, Maya was learning. For pack creatures who had lost their pack, friendship wasn't just companionship. It was a reason to keep living. There is a way, Corvash said finally, but it would require you to trust me completely, and it would be dangerous for both of us. I'm listening. The guards have a routine. Every third day they clean the cages in the morning while the auctions are running. They move us to temporary holding cells in groups of 5. The holding area is less secure, and there's a maintenance shaft that leads to the old sewage system. Maya nodded. When's the next cleaning day? Tomorrow. And you've been watching this routine for 3 years, waiting for the right moment? Corvash's smile was sharp. No, little star. I've been watching for 3 years, waiting for a reason to care whether I lived or died outside these walls. You gave me that reason. As they finalized their desperate plan in whispered conversations, neither of them noticed the small surveillance drone hovering silently in the shadows above. The Calreth had been monitoring the dangerous Fenrir more closely than they realized. In the security office, a guard captain watched the feed with interest. A friendship between the old wolf and the human girl could be useful. Very useful indeed. He made a note in his log and began planning some adjustments to the next day's routine. After all, the arena fights were much more entertaining when the combatants had something to lose. The morning of their planned escape started wrong from the very beginning. Instead of the usual rotation of guards, a full security detail arrived at dawn. Maya's heart sank as she counted at least 12 Calreth soldiers in full combat armor, led by a captain she'd never seen before. Attention, specimens, the captain announced in his harsh accent. Today's cleaning schedule has been modified for your safety and our security. Corvash caught Maya's eye and gave an almost imperceptible shake of his head. Their plan was dead before it could begin. The following prisoners will be transferred immediately to special holding for evaluation, the captain continued, consulting a digital pad. Lot 73, the Fenrir. Lot 112, the damaged Terran female. Maya's blood turned to ice. They were being separated, which could only mean one thing: the arena. But why her? She was too small, too weak to provide any entertainment in combat. As the guards opened their cages, Corvash moved with calm dignity. But Maya could see the tension in his muscles, the way his eyes tracked every weapon and exit. Even now, he was looking for an opportunity to fight. Don't, she whispered as they were shackled. Not yet. The special holding area was unlike anything Maya had seen in the facility. Instead of cramped cages, it was a series of comfortable cells with actual beds and decent food. The walls were reinforced with energy barriers, and guards patrolled constantly, but it felt less like a prison and more like a twisted hotel. Maya and Corvash were placed in adjacent cells, able to see and speak to each other but separated by an energy field that would kill anyone who tried to pass through it. This doesn't make sense, Maya said, as she examined her surroundings. If they were going to throw us in the arena, why the upgrade in accommodations? Before Corvash could answer, the captain from earlier appeared outside their cells. flanked by 2 guards and someone Maya didn't recognize. A tall, elegant creature in expensive robes who radiated authority. "Allow me to introduce myself," the robed figure said in perfect, unaccented galactic standard. "I am Arbitrator Vexhai of the Entertainment Guild. Have been watching you both with great interest." Maya had heard whispers of the Entertainment Guild. They controlled most of the galaxy's gladiatorial combat, from small-time pit fights to the grand arenas that drew audiences from across known space. The friendship between a Fenrir warrior and a human child, Vexhai continued, walking slowly in front of their cells. "It's quite touching, really. And more importantly, it's marketable." "Get to the point," Corvash growled. "Oh, I think you already know the point, warrior. Solo gladiators are entertaining, yes, but teams? Teams create drama. Teams create stories. And stories sell tickets." The horrible truth hit Maya like a physical blow. "You want us to fight together." "I want you to survive together," Vexhai corrected. "For as long as possible. The crowds love an underdog story. And what could be more compelling than the last Fenrir and his unlikely human companion fighting against impossible odds?" "And if we refuse?" Maya asked. Vexhai's smile was cold. "Then the Fenrir dies alone in a standard execution match tomorrow, and you get sold to a mining operation in the Outer Rim. I understand the life expectancy for humans in those mines is approximately 6 months. Maya looked at Corvash, seeing her own despair reflected in his golden eyes. They had been so focused on escaping the slave pens that they had walked directly into something worse. "However," Vexhai continued, "if you agree to my terms, you'll be well-fed, well-trained, and have a genuine chance at survival. Win enough matches and you might even earn your freedom. Several gladiator teams have managed it over the years." "How many teams have actually won their freedom?" Corvash asked. "In the past decade? 3 out of approximately 200. Vexhai's tone made it clear he found those odds quite reasonable. "Some choice," Maya muttered. "Life is full of difficult choices, young human. But consider this, together you have a chance. Apart you have none." That evening, after Vexhai and his entourage had left, Maya and Corvash sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Maya spoke. "We could try to refuse, make them go through with their threat. You would die in those mines, little star, and you'd die in the arena. At least this way we're together." Corvash was quiet for several minutes. When he finally spoke, his voice was thoughtful. "There is something Vexhai doesn't know about Fenrir psychology." "What's that?" "We are pack hunters. Give a Fenrir a pack to protect, and we become something far more dangerous than a lone warrior. For 3 years I have been surviving, but now," he met her eyes, "now I have something worth killing for." Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. She was seeing something in Corvash that he had kept carefully hidden during their time in the slave pens. This wasn't just the old wolf she had befriended. This was what had made the Fenrir legendary warriors. "You think we can actually do this? Win our freedom?" "I think we can do something better than that," Corvash said quietly. "I think we can make them regret ever putting us in the same cage." The next morning brought their first taste of gladiator training. They were escorted to a massive facility beneath the arena, where dozens of other fighting teams practiced under the watchful eyes of trainers and guards. Maya was fitted with lightweight armor and given basic weapons training, while Corvash was provided with traditional Fenrir combat gear, a set of reinforced gauntlets with built-in energy claws and armor that enhanced rather than restricted his natural speed and strength. Their trainer was a scarred veteran named Thak, who had earned his freedom in the arena 15 years earlier and now worked for the Guild. "Rule 1, Thak announced on their first day. "Forget whatever you think you know about fighting. Arena combat is different. It's not about killing your opponent quickly. It's about putting on a show." "A show?" Maya asked. "The crowd wants drama. They want close calls, last-second saves, incredible comebacks. A team that wins too easily doesn't generate return customers. A team that dies too quickly is a waste of the Guild's investment." Corvash bared his teeth. "So we're supposed to pretend to struggle?" "You won't need to pretend," Thak said with dark amusement. "The opponents get harder with each match. By the time you're facing real challenges, the crowd will be invested in your story. That's when you fight for real." Over the following weeks, Maya learned that she had a natural talent for speed and precision that complemented Corvash's raw power perfectly. More importantly, they developed an almost telepathic understanding of each other's movements. Corvash could anticipate where Maya would be in a fight, and she learned to position herself to maximize his effectiveness. But it was their emotional bond that made them truly formidable. In practice matches against other teams, Maya had seen gladiators abandon their partners to save themselves. She and Corvash never even considered it. They fought as if they were truly pack, each willing to die before letting the other fall. Their first real match was scheduled for the end of the month against a team of Rigelian hunters. As the date approached, Maya found herself alternating between terror and strange anticipation. "Are you afraid?" Corvash asked the night before their debut. "Terrified," Maya admitted. "You?" "No," he said simply. "For the first time in years, I am not afraid. I have my pack again, even if it is a pack of two. That is enough." As Maya drifted off to sleep, she thought about how much had changed since that first night when she had complimented his lullaby. They had come so far from the broken slaves in the market cages. Tomorrow they would find out if they had come far enough to survive. The arena was larger than Maya had imagined. As she and Corvash stood in the preparation chamber beneath the fighting floor, she could hear the roar of thousands of spectators above them. The sound made her knees shake. "Breathe, little star," Corvash said softly, adjusting the straps on her armor one final time. "Remember what Thak taught us. Stay mobile, watch your partner's back, and give the crowd something to cheer about," Maya recited, though her voice trembled. Their opponents, the Rigelian hunters, were already being announced to the crowd. Maya had studied recordings of their previous matches. They were fast, coordinated, and utterly ruthless. Each stood about 6 feet tall with chitinous armor and natural weapons, razor-sharp claws and venomous stingers in their tails. "Team Shadowfang," the announcer's voice boomed above them. The last Fenrir warrior and his unlikely human companion, making their arena debut. Maya almost laughed despite her terror. "Shadowfang?" "The crowd loves dramatic names," Corvash said with a grimace. "At least they didn't call us Beauty and the Beast." The platform beneath them began to rise, lifting them into the blazing lights of the arena proper. The crowd's roar was deafening, a wall of sound that hit Maya like a physical force. The arena floor was a circle of sand roughly 100 meters across, surrounded by energy barriers that kept the combatants in and the spectators safe. Across from them, the two Rigelians moved with predatory grace, their multifaceted eyes tracking every movement. Maya could see intelligence there, and something that might have been amusement at being matched against such unlikely opponents. "Citizens of the galaxy," the announcer continued, "today we witness the debut of the most unusual team in arena history. Can friendship triumph over predatory instinct? Can loyalty overcome the law of the jungle? Let the games begin." A tone sounded, and suddenly the Rigelians were in motion. They moved faster than Maya had expected, splitting up to attack from 2 directions simultaneously. This was their standard opening: divide their opponent's attention and strike where they were weakest. But Corvash had anticipated this. As the first Rigelian lunged toward Maya, the Fenrir intercepted with a speed that left the crowd gasping. His energy claws met the alien's natural ones in a shower of sparks, while his other hand reached out to grab Maya and pull her behind him. "Pattern 7, he called out, using their training code. Maya immediately understood. She rolled to the left while Corvash engaged both opponents, drawing their attention. The crowd was on its feet, roaring approval at the Fenrir's display of protective fury. But Maya wasn't running away. She was positioning. While the Rigelians focused on the obvious threat, Maya circled behind them. Her small size and lightweight armor allowed her to move almost silently across the sand. When she struck, it was with surgical precision, her vibroblade slicing through the nerve cluster at the base of the first Rigelian's tail, paralyzing the dangerous stinger. The alien spun toward her with a shriek of rage, but Corvash was already there, his massive form crashing into both opponents like a furry battering ram. The impact sent all 3 combatants rolling across the sand in a tangle of limbs and claws. "Now!" Corvash roared. Maya sprinted forward, leaping onto the back of the second Rigelian as it tried to rise. Her blade found the joint between its head and thorax. Not a killing blow, but one that sent paralytic venom through its own nervous system. The creature collapsed, twitching. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, It had been a textbook demonstration of teamwork, each fighter complementing the other's strengths perfectly. More importantly, it had been exciting to watch without being a slaughter. But the match wasn't over. The first Rigelian, despite its paralyzed tail, was still very much a threat. It advanced on Maya with murder in its compound eyes, claws extended for a killing strike. Corvash reached them first, but barely. His energy, claws locked with the Rigelian's natural ones, and for a moment they were locked in a test of pure strength. The alien was powerful, but Corvash had the advantage of size and leverage. Slowly, inexorably, he forced the creature's arms apart. "Yield," he growled in the Rigelian language. The alien's response was to spit acid directly at Corvash's face. The Fenrir jerked his head aside, but the acid scored across his shoulder, burning through armor and fur to the skin beneath. His roar of pain and rage shook the arena. Maya saw red. Without thinking, she launched herself at the Rigelian, her blade finding the gap in its armor at the throat. But instead of a killing blow, she pressed just hard enough to draw a line of green blood. "Yield," she repeated Corvash's command, "or the next one goes deeper." For a long moment, the arena was silent except for the labored breathing of the combatants. Then slowly, the Rigelian relaxed its fighting stance and stepped back. It had conceded defeat. The crowd went absolutely wild. Not only had the newcomers won their first match, they had done so with honor, sparing their opponents when they could have killed them. It was exactly the kind of story the arena crowds loved. As medical teams rushed onto the sand to tend to both the defeated Rigelians and Corvash's acid burn, Maya found herself grinning despite everything. They had survived. More than that, they had won. Back in their cell that evening, Maya carefully applied healing salve to Corvash's shoulder, while he sat patiently still. "That was stupid of me," she said quietly. "Jumping that Rigelian like that. I could have gotten us both killed." "You were protecting your pack," Corvash replied simply. "It was the most Fenrir thing I've ever seen a human do." "Is that good or bad?" "It means you're learning to think like a warrior instead of a victim. That will keep us alive." Their victory had not gone unnoticed by the other gladiator teams. That night, they received visits from several veteran fighters who offered congratulations and advice. Maya was surprised to discover a sense of camaraderie among the gladiators that transcended species and rivalries. "The arena changes you," explained Zara, a human woman who had been fighting for 3 years with her Altarian partner. "Out there, we're all just trying to survive another day. The real enemy isn't each other, it's the system that puts us here." "Have you ever thought about trying to escape?" Maya asked quietly. Zara laughed bitterly. "Where would we go? Most of us have nowhere left in the galaxy. At least here we have food, shelter, and medical care, and if we're very good and very lucky, maybe someday we'll be free." "Do you really believe that?" "I have to believe it. Without that hope, what's the point of fighting at all?" Later, when they were alone again, Maya asked Corvash the same question. "Do you think we can really earn our freedom, or are we just fooling ourselves?" Corvash was quiet for a long time, staring up at the ceiling of their cell. "I think," he said finally, "that freedom isn't just about walking out of this place. It's about choosing who you want to be even when all your choices are bad ones. And who do you choose to be?" "I choose to be the wolf who protects his pack, whatever that costs me." He turned to look at her. "What about you, little star? Who do you choose to be?" Maya thought about the girl who had been captured 3 months ago, terrified and broken. Then she thought about the person who had stood over a defeated opponent today, blade at their throat, demanding surrender. "I choose to be someone who doesn't give up," she said. "Someone who fights for the people she cares about." "Then we are pack indeed," Corvash said with satisfaction. "And tomorrow we fight again." As Maya fell asleep, she wondered what her next opponent would be. But for the first time since her capture, she wasn't afraid of the answer. Whatever came next, she wouldn't face it alone. 3 months and 12 victories later, Maya and Corvash had become something of a phenomenon in the gladiatorial world. Their combination of tactical brilliance, genuine teamwork, and crowd-pleasing heroics had made them fan favorites across multiple systems. Betting pools followed their every match, and merchandise bearing their likeness, sold in gift shops throughout the entertainment guild's network of arenas. But success in the arena came with its own problems. Your next opponents will be the Crimson Reapers, arbitrator HFY announced during their weekly briefing. They've held the championship for 2 years running, 37 consecutive victories, 0 defeats. Maya studied the holographic recordings of their upcoming opponents with growing unease. The Crimson Reapers were a team of 4 modified Catherian warriors, genetically enhanced humanoids with cybernetic implants that made them faster, stronger, and deadlier than any natural fighter. They moved like a single organism in combat, and their record spoke for itself. 4 against 2? Maya asked. That doesn't seem fair. The Reapers requested the handicap, HFY replied with cold amusement. They find standard 2-on-2 matches boring. The crowd loves an underdog story, and what could be more compelling than watching fan favorites face impossible odds? Korvash studied the recordings intently. These are not warriors. These are living weapons. Indeed, the Catherians have been modifying their gladiators for generations. Each Reaper represents millions of credits in surgical enhancement and training. HFY's expression was unreadable. I won't lie to you, the odds are not in your favor. What happens if we refuse? Maya asked, though she already knew the answer. The same thing that would happen if you lost. Retirement from active competition. In arena terms, retirement meant execution. Successful gladiators who could no longer fight were considered a liability, too valuable to sell, too dangerous to release, too expensive to maintain. That evening, as they prepared for what might be their final match, Maya found herself thinking about the path that had brought them here. She was no longer the terrified girl who had been captured from the colony ship. Months of training and combat had transformed her into something harder, faster, more dangerous. But at what cost? I've been thinking, she said as Korvash sharpened his energy claws with methodical precision. What if this is exactly what they want? What if we're not gladiators earning our freedom, but just very entertaining prisoners? Korvash paused in his maintenance routine. Explain. Look at us. We've won 12 matches, gained thousands of fans, generated millions in revenue for the guild. But we're no closer to freedom than we were 3 months ago. If anything, we're more valuable to them now. You think tomorrow's match is designed to kill us? I think tomorrow's match is designed to see how far they can push us before we break. And if we do break, well, at least we'll go out in a blaze of glory that the crowds will remember. Korvash set down his equipment and looked at her seriously. What are you suggesting? Maya had been formulating this idea for weeks, but she'd never voiced it before. Now facing what seemed like certain death, she finally found the courage. I'm suggesting we stop playing their game. We stop trying to earn freedom through their rules and start making our own. Escape? Korvash's tone was skeptical. From the arena? During a match? With thousands of spectators and hundreds of guards watching? Not escape, revolution. Korvash's eyes widened. You want to turn the arena against itself. Think about it. How many gladiators are down here? How many slaves working maintenance, security, support? All of them trapped in the system. All of them dreaming of freedom they'll never be allowed to have. And you think they'll follow a human girl and an old wolf? Maya smiled grimly. I think they'll follow whoever offers them a real chance instead of false hope. Over the next few hours, Maya outlined her plan. It was audacious, dangerous, and probably suicidal. It was also the first real hope either of them had felt since their capture. The key was the arena's own security systems. The energy barriers that kept gladiators contained during matches were controlled from a central command center. If someone could reach those controls during a live match, they could bring down every barrier in the facility simultaneously. The command center is directly beneath the arena floor, Maya explained, sketching diagrams on the sandy floor of their cell. There's a maintenance access point in the storage area where they keep backup equipment. Getting there during a match would be impossible. Too many guards, too much security. Not during any match. During our match. When all attention is focused on the arena floor. When every eye in the building is watching the famous Shadowfang team face their greatest challenge. Korvash studied her drawings. You're talking about splitting up. One of us fights the Reapers alone while the other attempts to reach the command center. I'm talking about one of us dying to buy time for the other. To free everyone in this place. The weight of her. Words settled between them. They both knew the mathematics of the situation. The Crimson Reapers were designed to kill opponents efficiently. One fighter, even one as skilled as Corvash, wouldn't last long against 4 enhanced warriors. "I'll go to the command center," Maya said quietly. "You're the fighter. You have the best chance of surviving long enough for me to—" "No." Corvash's voice was firm. "I am pack leader. I protect the pack, not the other way around. This isn't about pack hierarchy. This is about who has the best chance of succeeding, and that would be me. I know the arena's layout better than you do. I'm faster, stronger, more likely to reach the command center undetected." Maya opened her mouth to argue, then stopped. He was right, and they both knew it. She was the better choice to face the Reapers alone. Not because she was stronger, but because her size and speed might let her evade them long enough for Corvash to complete his mission. "How long do you need?" she asked. 10 minutes. "Maybe 15 if the security protocols are more complex than I think. I can't last 15 minutes against 4 Reapers. You don't have to defeat them. You just have to survive them. Stay mobile, use the arena terrain. Make them work for every strike. And remember, the crowd loves an underdog. The longer you last, the more they'll cheer, and the more distracted the guards will be." They spent the rest of the night going over every detail of their plan. Maya memorized the locations of every piece of cover in the arena, every possible escape route, every environmental hazard she could use to her advantage. Corvash studied the building's maintenance blueprints until he could navigate to the command center blindfolded. As dawn approached, bringing with it their final match, Maya felt a strange sense of peace. Whatever happened today, they would face it on their own terms. "Are you afraid?" Corvash asked as they heard the guards approaching to escort them to the preparation chambers. "Terrified," Maya admitted, "but also excited. For the first time since we were captured, we're going to fight for something bigger than just staying alive another day. Win or lose. Little Star, I am proud to call you Pack." The guards arrived with their usual efficiency, but Maya noticed something different in their manner. There was an anticipation in the air, a sense that today's match would be special. Word had leaked about the handicapped fight, and excitement was building throughout the facility. As they were separated for individual preparation, Maya to the gladiator chambers, Corvash to be processed for special equipment, requirements as their plan demanded. Maya caught his eye one last time. "See you on the other side," she whispered. "In this life or the next," he replied in the traditional Fenrir farewell. Then they were apart, each heading toward their separate roles in what would either be the most spectacular escape in galactic history or the most dramatic gladiatorial deaths ever recorded. Maya tried not to think about which outcome was more likely. The arena had never been more packed. Maya could hear the thunderous roar of the crowd as she stood alone on the preparation platform, checking her equipment one final time. Somewhere above her, nearly 50,000 beings from across the galaxy waited to see if the beloved underdog team could survive their greatest challenge yet. What they didn't know was that only half of that team was going to face the Crimson Reapers. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications," the announcer's voice boomed across the arena.
"Prepare yourselves for the most anticipated match in recent memory.
4 against 2. Champions against challengers. Experience against determination." Maya closed her eyes and centered herself, running through everything Corvash had taught her about Fenrir battle meditation. Find your center. Trust your instincts. Fight not for victory, but for the pack. Introducing first the undefeated champions, the Crimson Reapers. The crowd's cheer was deafening as 4 figures emerged from the opposite side of the arena. The Reapers moved in perfect synchronization, their cybernetic enhancements gleaming under the arena lights. Each stood over 7 feet tall, their originally humanoid forms enhanced with synthetic muscle, reinforced bone structure, and neural interfaces that allowed them to fight as a single coordinated unit. Maya had studied recordings of their fights for weeks, but seeing them in person was different. They radiated lethality in a way that made her skin crawl. These weren't gladiators, they were killing machines wearing gladiator faces. And now they're challengers, the fan favorites who have captured hearts across the galaxy. Shadowfang. The platform beneath Maya began to rise, but as it emerged into the arena proper, gasps of confusion rippled through the crowd. Where were the crowds expecting to see 2 fighters? Only one stood on the platform. Maya raised her hand to acknowledge the crowd, and their confused murmurs turned to concerned cheers. The Reapers had stopped their synchronized advance, clearly puzzled by the change in circumstances. "It appears that the Fenrir warrior is unable to compete today due to injury," the announcer improvised smoothly. But in true gladiatorial tradition, his human companion chooses to honor their commitment to the crowd. 1 against 4, the ultimate test of courage and skill. The crowd erupted in a mixture of excitement and horror. This was either going to be the most heroic last stand in arena history, or the most brutal execution they'd ever witnessed. Maya drew her weapons, a vibro sword in her right hand and a neural disruptor in her left. The disruptor was a new addition, supposedly to help level the playing field against the Reaper's cybernetic enhancements. In reality, it was cover for the modified signal transmitter hidden in its housing, the device that would allow Corvash to monitor her vital signs and know when to begin his own mission. The Reapers spread out into their standard formation, clearly intending to end this fight quickly. But their leader, a towering figure designated as Reaper Prime, held up one hand. "Human." His voice was a mechanical rasp that carried clearly across the arena. "This is not combat. This is execution. Withdraw now, and we will make your death swift." The crowd fell silent, waiting for her response. Maya looked up at the thousands of faces surrounding her, then at the energy barriers that kept them all trapped in their roles as either entertainment or audience. "Thanks for the offer," she called back, loud enough for her words to carry to the broadcast pickups. "But I've got a job to finish." She triggered the signal transmitter, sending a pulse that Corvash would recognize as the beginning of their operation. Then she smiled at the Reapers, raised her sword in salute, and prepared to die as heroically as possible. The Reapers moved like liquid death, but Maya was already in motion. She sprinted not toward them, but toward the arena's eastern wall, where a series of elevated platforms provided the only cover in the fighting space. The crowd roared approval at what they saw as tactical thinking. Maya made it to the first platform just as Reaper Prime's energy blade scored the ground where she'd been standing. She rolled, came up running, and leaped to the second platform as 2 more Reapers converged on her position. For 90 seconds, she played a deadly game of 3-dimensional tag among the platforms, using her size and agility to stay 1 step ahead of instant death. The crowd was on its feet, screaming encouragement as the tiny human refused to make it easy for her enhanced opponents. But the Reapers were learning her patterns, predicting her movements. Maya felt the heat of an energy blast sear past her ear as she leaped between platforms. They were herding her toward the arena's center, where there would be no cover and no escape. Time to change tactics. Instead of running from the Reapers, Maya suddenly reversed direction and charged directly at Reaper Prime. The move was so unexpected that she actually managed to score a hit with her vibro sword, cutting through the synthetic armor on his left arm. The wound was superficial, but the crowd's reaction was explosive. First blood to the underdog. The cheer was so loud it momentarily distracted even the Reapers. Maya used that split second to trigger her neural disruptor at point-blank range against Reaper Prime's cybernetic interface. The device wasn't powerful enough to cause serious damage, but it created enough interference to disrupt his coordination with the other 3 for a few precious seconds. She rolled between his legs and came up behind him. But the other Reapers were already moving to intercept. Maya found herself facing 3 enhanced warriors while their leader shook off the neural static. This was where her training with Corvash made the difference. For months, she had sparred against an opponent who was faster and stronger than any human could be. She had learned to read body language, to anticipate attacks, to turn superior strength into a disadvantage. She ducked under a coordinated strike from 2 Reapers, letting their momentum carry them past her. The 3rd Reaper's energy blade missed her by millimeters as she twisted away, and her return strike with the neural disruptor sent feedback through his system that made him stumble. But they were adapting to her tactics, and Maya was tiring. Already her breathing was labored, and her movements were a fraction slower than they had been at the start. She couldn't keep this up much longer. Where was Corvash? How much more time did she need to buy? As if in answer to her thoughts, a subtle vibration ran through the arena floor, so slight that only someone looking for it would notice. The Reapers didn't react, but Maya felt a surge of hope. Corvash had reached the command center. Now she just had to survive long enough for him to complete his work. Reaper Prime had recovered from the neural disruption and was advancing with the calculated patience of a predator who knew his prey was trapped. The other three moved to surround her, cutting off any possible escape routes. "You have fought with honor, human," Reaper Prime said. "But this ends now." Maya raised her weapons, knowing that the next exchange would probably be her last. But as the four enhanced warriors closed in for the kill, she found herself smiling. She had given Corvash the time he needed. Whatever happened next, their real mission was about to succeed. The Reapers attacked as one, 4 energy blades converging on her position with lethal precision. Maya closed her eyes and thought of aurora wolves dancing among the stars. Then every light in the arena went out. The arena plunged into absolute darkness for exactly 3 seconds. Then emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in a hellish red glow. But in those 3 seconds, everything changed. Maya hit the ground hard as the Reapers' coordinated attack passed through empty air above her. She rolled away from their position, using the chaos and confusion to put distance between herself and certain death. But the real chaos was happening throughout the facility. Corvash hadn't just disabled the arena's main power grid. He had overloaded every energy barrier in the building. The force fields containing gladiators holding slaves, securing restricted areas. All of them failed simultaneously. The crowd's excited cheers turned to screams of terror as they realized the implications. 50,000 spectators were suddenly sharing space with hundreds of the galaxy's most dangerous prisoners, and there was nothing between them but empty air. In the gladiator holding areas beneath the arena, Zara and her Altarian partner exchanged a single look before sprinting for the exit. Similar scenes played out throughout the complex as every captive fighter made the same decision. This was their chance. Probably their only chance. Maya struggled to her feet as the Reapers reorganized themselves in the emergency lighting. But before they could resume their attack, a new voice boomed across the arena's communication system. "Citizens of the galaxy." Corvash's voice carried clearly over the chaos. Speaking from the command center he had fought his way to. "You have come here tonight to watch beings fight and die for your entertainment. But what you are really watching is slavery." Security forces were pouring into the arena now, trying to restore order, but they were vastly outnumbered by the freed gladiators and working slaves who had joined the uprising. Maya could see battles breaking out in the spectator sections as arena guards tried to contain the situation. "Every fighter you have cheered for is a prisoner," Corvash continued. "Every victory you have celebrated was won by someone stolen from their home, their family, their life. Tonight that ends." Reaper Prime was advancing on Maya again, but his enhanced senses were picking up something she couldn't detect. The sound of his fellow champions being engaged by other freed gladiators who had made their way to the arena floor. The coordinated unity that made the Reapers so dangerous was breaking down as they faced multiple threats simultaneously. Maya used the distraction to her advantage. She triggered her neural disruptor again, this time targeting not just one Reaper, but sending a wide-spectrum pulse that interfered with all their cybernetic systems at once. The feedback wasn't enough to disable them, but it bought her precious seconds. The Entertainment Guild tells you that some gladiators earn their freedom. Corvash's voice continued as Maya dodged another killing strike. "In the past 50 years, exactly 7 fighters have been granted release. 7 out of thousands who have died for your amusement." Maya realized what he was doing. This wasn't just an escape. It was a revolution being broadcast live to millions of viewers across the galaxy. Every world with access to the arena feeds was hearing the truth about the gladiatorial system. But revolutions came with a price. As Maya fought for her life against increasingly desperate Reapers, she could see that Corvash's position in the command center was under assault. Security forces had finally located him, and he was fighting a running battle to maintain control of the communication systems. "Maya," a familiar voice called out. Zara and several other freed gladiators had fought their way to the arena floor. "This way." Maya dodged a final strike from Reaper Prime and sprinted toward the rescue party. Behind her, the enhanced warriors pursued, but they were met by a wall of freed fighters who had no intention of returning to captivity. The arena had become a war zone. Spectators fled in panic while security forces tried to contain hundreds of escaped prisoners. The gladiators, trained fighters all, were proving more than a match for guards who had grown complacent in their roles as jailers. Maya fought her way through the chaos toward the command center, determined to reach Corvash. But as she climbed the maintenance ladders that led to the facility's nerve center, she could hear the sound of intense combat growing closer. She found him surrounded by unconscious guards, his hands flying over holographic controls as he maintained the communication, broadcast while simultaneously downloading every piece of data he could access from the guild's databases. Almost finished, he said without looking up, blood from several wounds matting his gray fur. Financial records, prisoner locations, guild operations across the galaxy, everything we need to expose the entire system. And then what? Maya asked, taking position at the door to watch for incoming security forces. Then we run. I've contacted a Terran diplomatic ship that was in the system. They're demanding immediate access to extract human prisoners, and the guild can't refuse without causing an interstellar incident. What about the others? The non-human gladiators? Corvash's expression was grim. That's the beauty of live broadcasts. Half the galaxy just watched their own people being held as slaves. The diplomatic repercussions will be massive. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Maya raised her weapons as a squad of heavily armed security forces approached the command center. But before they could breach the door, another sound cut through the air. The distinctive whine of military-grade transporter beams. Terran Marines materialized in the corridor, their armor bearing the insignia of the Earth Defense Force. The security guards found themselves facing professional soldiers, rather than escaped prisoners, and the fight went out of them quickly. "This is Colonel Stevens, Earth Defense Force," the lead Marine announced. "We're here under diplomatic authority to extract Terran citizens held illegally by the Entertainment Guild." Maya had never been so happy to hear a human voice. But as the Marines secured the area and prepared to evacuate them, she realized that their victory was incomplete. "We can't leave the others," she told Colonel Stevens. "The non-human gladiators, the alien slaves, they'll be punished for our escape." "I'm sorry, miss, but my orders are specific to human extraction only. We don't have authority to interfere with guild operations regarding other species." Maya looked at Corvash, seeing her own frustration reflected in his golden eyes. They had struck a blow against the system, but the system would survive. Other fighters would take their places in the arena. The cycle would continue, but Corvash smiled and held up a data crystal. "Perhaps not. The information on here includes financial records showing that the guild has been purchasing slaves from human pirates, operating in neutral space. That makes it a Terran military matter." Colonel Stevens examined the crystal with interest. "This documents illegal human involvement in the slave trade?" "Extensively, along with evidence of guild operations that violate a dozen interstellar treaties." Corvash's smile was sharp. "I believe the proper human phrase is smoking gun." 3 hours later, Maya stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force cruiser Redemption, watching through the viewports as guild security forces transported hundreds of freed prisoners to ships from their homeworlds. The diplomatic crisis triggered by the broadcast had forced a complete investigation of guild operations, and what they found would keep lawyers busy for decades. "What happens now?" Maya asked Corvash, who stood beside her despite offers to transport him to a Fenrir colony ship. "Now we heal," he said simply, "and then we decide what kind of pack we want to be." "Pack? Did you think I would abandon my pack sister now? We have fought together, bled together, survived together. That makes us family by any definition that matters." Maya looked out at the stars, thinking about the journey that had brought them here. From broken slaves in a market cage to freedom fighters who had helped bring down one of the galaxy's most brutal institutions. It seemed impossible, but the evidence was right in front of her. "So what do we do with our freedom?" she asked. Corvash's smile was fierce and proud. "We make sure no one else has to fight for theirs the way we did. The galaxy is full of cages, little star. Time to start opening them." As the Redemption jumped to hyperspace, carrying them toward Earth and a future they would write themselves, Maya realized that their story wasn't ending. It was just beginning. They had learned something in those dark months that the galaxy needed to understand. Sometimes the most unlikely friendships were also the most powerful. And sometimes, when friendship met injustice, the result was revolution. The old wolf and the human girl had found each other in the depths of despair, and together they had discovered that hope was just another word for refusing to accept that things couldn't change. In the arena, they had been entertainment. In freedom, they would be unstoppable.